Good morning and welcome to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development for this Thursday, October 9th of 2025. My name is Councillor Evan Duncan. I am chairing this committee. I'm joined by my councillor colleagues, Councillor Browati, Santos, and Wyatt. I'm also joined here today by members of the public service, including Director Hazel Boris and Mr. James Veach. And of course, as always, our senior committee clerk, Ms. Leah Cowan. Nailed it. Before we get started here, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territories, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota people, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Before we get started, we have a couple motions here. One for the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councillor Santos. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. We also have how many addendum items here? 9, I believe.
I'll move those.
8 through 17. Councillor Browati moves 8 through 17 to be added to our regular reports. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that is also carried. And my understanding, the clerk has communicated that we have 2 delegates here to speak to the now report 8, which is the St. Boniface Museum. Is there interest in hearing from these delegates?
Sure.
Councillor Wyatt moves. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. So we will hear from you folks here when you're called up. And with that, I believe we can move into delegations at this point, Madam Clerk.
There's a hearing first.
Sorry, my apologies. My apologies. We'll start with our 9:30 hearing, and I'll turn it over to the clerk to introduce.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. Item 1 is a text amendment to Schedule Y, the Mature Communities PDO 1 of the Winnipeg Zoning Bylaw number 200 of 2006 under file DAZ 219 of 2025. Please note communications were received in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. Committee would like a brief overview from the public service.
I would, yes, please.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, this was a motion that came from council. It's pretty much considered a housekeeping cleanup item that with all the zoning changes we had going through the past couple of years, one schedule of restricted front yards was missed. So this is putting that restriction, which is in Wildwood Park, back in the proper PDO so that when people do come forward for future single family homes, they have to meet that special front yard in Wildwood Park.
Okay. Councillor Wyatt, yes.
Yeah, I know we updated our PDO, we updated our secondary plans all over the place with regards to the zoning bylaw change that we did back in June. Why is it that we missed the secondary plan down in South St. Patel that was subject to a hearing and a decision by council recently, which is allowing for 2-acre lots and cisterns to be built? Why couldn't we have updated that plan, which goes back to 1977?
Yeah, Councillor, we have, through the chair, we have several, like over close to 40 different secondary plans. The amendments we made in conjunction with the Housing Accelerator Fund project were amendments that would conflict with the Housing Accelerator Fund within our mature communities, within our serviced areas. There's several secondary plans that are outdated and need either to be repealed completely or revised. So I wouldn't consider this a miss, Councillor. It was just one of these things that is not on the same plate as the secondary plan amendments we had for the zoning bylaw amendment.
So
alignment.
And appreciate the question. There was a few things that were noted by the public service as potential revisits in the zoning rewrite that potentially is going to be coming forward here in the coming months. However, this public hearing, we should stick to the wild.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I just don't know, but this is Wildwood, so you know, and I'm just raising it because is there a way we can put a freeze on those that we haven't done yet so that we don't have these types of applications coming forward in the future? Because this has opened the floodgate, and I know the administration wrote a report against it, you know, and was not in favor of the decision the council made.
Sure.
And, I'm concerned about it because, you know, we've never done this before, having cisterns in place and holding tanks like we're some sort of rural municipality. I think it sets a dangerous precedent that we're starting to allow this. You know, it kind of lets a Pandora's box open up here potentially in many of our wards, right? So, is there a way to bring a freeze in at least on those ones so that we don't have this nonsense carrying on?
Mr. Chair, we can take that back and probably something we need to connect with legal with as well.
Yeah.
But we can take that suggestion back and look at.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the public service on the text amendments to Schedule Y? No? Clerk?
Right, so first we'll hear from the applicant, Robert Kostiak, in support of the application.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Robert Kostyuk. I'm a principal planner with the Planning, Property and Development Department, and my office is at Unit 15, 34th Street. It's like Mr. Veach stole my thunder, basically summarized the exact same thing I was going to say, that this amendment was directed by council and we're bringing it forward. It was on PPD's radar, so we were happy to move on it very quickly. The result of the proposed amendment is to ensure that schedules I and K override rules of the mature communities PDO1. So schedules I and K include special setback rules, including the 50-foot setback rule in Wildwood. This amendment aligns with the rules of the PDO, with Schedule AC, the low density infill bylaw that was recently passed. So it's in more conformance with that and a little bit simpler to administer as well. So we see this as a minor change, and we also have a minor change to the title of the PDO itself, where we're eliminating areas 1 and 2 because there's no reference to areas 1 and 2. So it's just simply going to be the mature communities PDO. So in summary, it's a housekeeping item. It was directed by council, and the proposal aligns with council's direction.
Thank you. Any more questions at this time? We can move on.
Okay, there's no one else registered in support, in opposition, or with respect to this application. Just confirming no one in the gallery wishes to speak in support, in opposition to, or with respect to this application. Okay. There are additional questions for the public service?
Good to go.
Okay, and on rebuttal? Nothing at this time?
Nothing further.
Okay, great.
I'll move that the report of Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried?
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is also carried?
I move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to Executive Policy Committee. My supporting reasons are, again, this is largely just a cleanup matter, and happy to move this along.
Yeah, I'd also like to note that this identifies the concerns that were brought forward by the residents in the Wildwood neighborhood, specific to some of those lots that are very unique to that neighborhood and Winnipeg as a whole.
Neighborhood. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that's carried.
I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted, and all persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Thank you very much. That concludes our hearings for this morning.
Thank you.
I'm prepared to move into our reports at this time. We have 7. However, we will hear from our delegations before going into those reports. Sure. We will start. Unfortunately, the 2 delegates are not registered. Will we need paperwork completed for that?
We have the suspension of the rules. I just would need their names.
Okay, great. So whomever, are you folks planning to speak together or separate? Sorry? Together, okay. Come on up front here. What I'll do is we're going to give you 5 minutes and we'll just get you to state your name. That's all you need to do at this point in time, both of you. And the clerk will take note of that. And then as soon as you're ready, the floor will be yours.
I'm Serge Balkan, SERGE BALCAEN, and I'm the president of the board of the museum.
Cindy DeRoche, CINDY, yes, ROS, executive director of the Museums and Past Museum.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to appear before the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development today. On behalf of the Musée de Saint-Boniface, we are grateful for your time and ongoing commitment to residents of Winnipeg, all of whom share in the stewardship and pride of this remarkable civic national treasure. We also recognize that the City of Winnipeg is signatory to the Indigenous Accord, and we want to affirm that the museum's ongoing work in interpretation, community engagement, and inclusive storytelling actively supports the spirit of that accord and its focus on truth and reconciliation. The Musée de Saint-Boniface is more than a museum. It's the oldest building in Winnipeg, national, provincial, and municipal historical site. We are a city-owned museum that offers regular French language cultural programming and interpretation. It also houses the largest collection of Louis-Riel artifacts in Canada, a collection that tells the story of people who shaped this region and helped define Manitoba and Canada as we know them today. In 2026, the museum will mark its 175th anniversary, a milestone that belongs to the entire city. But today, our challenge is simple and urgent. The building is closed due to serious infrastructure, electrical issues, historical window restoration, and hazardous materials to take into account under some scope of the work. Under these are resolves, we cannot reopen our doors to the public. Despite this closure, the museum board, acting under City Bylaw 4824-88, has continued to uphold the stewardship role on behalf of the city. Since June 2024, under the leadership of our Executive Director, Cindy Desrochers, operations have continued from a temporary location. She and her small team have done exceptional work maintaining programs, protecting the collection, managing contractors, and securing new funding to lessen the burden on the city. Through these collective efforts, we have raised $1.5 billion of the $6 million required for the first phase of restoration. This includes a confirmed $3 million federal contribution, as well as support from the province of Manitoba and private donors who share our confidence in the project and in the city's role as owner and protector of this heritage site. We also want to acknowledge City of Winnipeg's earlier contribution made when this project was initially believed to be smaller in scope. That investment was instrumental in signaled the city's commitment and helped the museum to successfully leverage additional funds from other governments and private partners. Your support has directly contributed to the progress we have achieved to date. However, the federal contributions must now be leveraged. To unlock the $3 million in federal funds, the city's $1 million contribution is essential. Without it, the remaining restoration work and reopening of the museum cannot move forward. We are not here to look backwards, but to look forwards together. The city and the museum share a common purpose, protecting a historical site that represents the roots and resilience of our city and its people. Yet under the current structure of our relationship, there's no formal mechanism that allows the museum to regularly keep city councillors apprised of the conditions and needs of their asset. This has made it difficult for council to have a clear line and sight of the building's realities and progress. A renewed multi-year management agreement would correct that gap, ensuring transparency, accountability, and collaboration moving forward. Our request is clear, practical, and achievable within the 2026 budget process. An adjusted operating budget with CPI indexing to ensure stability and sustainability, a multi-year management agreement consistent with civic best practices and required by our funders, a $1 million capital investment to leverage confirmed federal and provincial funds and close the remaining gap. These measures will allow the city to meet its commitments under the 1963, 1982, 1981 agreements and ensure this irreplaceable landmark reopens in time for its 175th anniversary in 2026. Accordingly, we respectfully ask that this committee move the following motion. That the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development support and prioritize the request from the Musée de Saint-Boniface Museum for capital infrastructure funds on an urgent basis in order to leverage confirmed contributions from other governments and enable the museum to reopen in May of 2026 in time to celebrate its 175th anniversary on September 7th, 2026. Councillors, this is an opportunity to renew one of Winnipeg's greatest historical landmarks and to demonstrate collective civic leadership. With your support, we can ensure the city fulfills its heritage commitments and that together we reopen Winnipeg's oldest building, not as a relic of the past, but as a living symbol of reconciliation, community, and pride in our shared history. Thank you.
Questions? Councilor Wyatt?
My understanding, this is the oldest structure, wooden structure in Western Canada.
Yeah.
Not just Winnipeg, correct?
Oldest building in the city of Winnipeg,
Yeah.
largest oak log structure in North America.
Largest what?
Oak log structure in North America.
Really? Okay. And it's the largest wooden structure in Western Canada, then probably the first. That's what I was always understood on my boat tours and everything I've taken it.
That could be a piece of information that I might learn today.
Okay. I was the one who moved the motion at our committee committee, which is East Kelowna Transcona, bring this matter forward when one of your board members reached out to me, Ms. Shelley Glover. And I can tell you, I was kind of surprised. Normally something like this would come out of the committee at Riel. But it's a heritage site, not just for Riel or St. Boniface. To me, it's a heritage site for Winnipeg and all of Western Canada. What conversations have you had with the Riel Community Committee and the councillors for the area, specifically the councillor of St. Boniface on this matter?
I presented last week to the Riel Committee.
Okay.
And our counselor does sit on our board.
Yeah.
So he does know our.
And what did Riel do? Did Riel move any motion or do anything?
It was presented to them and left with them.
I see. Okay.
Received as information. I did speak with Councillor Allard yesterday,
Yeah.
and he did inform me that he was writing a letter of support to the committee today.
All right. Have we received that letter of support?
It was circulated through email, yes.
Okay. I want to thank you for your volunteerism and the work you do on your committee and your board. I serve on the Transcona Museum board. Now, one of the things that I know the museum, Transcona Museum, I'm assuming you as well, the city automatically through the budget that we get deducts so much out of municipal accommodation for the maintenance of the facility. There's a percentage taken off in lieu of. Do you have that arrangement as well?
No, we have to pay for it out of our budget.
Oh, I see. So you don't have that similar arrangement that,
No.
okay, they automatically make a deduction. And so if their boiler goes or anything, they step in, municipal accommodation steps in and replaces it. But it's almost like buying a very, very expensive insurance plan.
But it's an insurance plan and it's one that we don't have.
Right.
So hence why we're in a situation where we're looking at an infrastructure project worth $6 million. Because we don't have that insurance plan.
Yeah.
So our insurance plan is unfortunately always going to the public purse and looking at all of our levels of government to help support the museum and its infrastructure.
And the work that you're doing now, well, this will actually, I'm assuming it's all being done based on heritage guidelines and everything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then, is there gonna be any outstanding work after this, or is I guess what I'm trying to say is that, is this been, a scope been reduced to try to make your budget? Are there other issues that we're not aware of that will be coming online later that have to be addressed?
It started off with a $1 million problem around last Christmas. Shelley let me know that we had the building inspected Cindy, sorry. And from there, one can of worms opened another one, and it snowballed to this. Things like we lost our heat, and we were serviced that whole corner with the seniors home and all that was under one boiler. That was all separated, so we lost our heat. So there's a huge sum of money. Structurally, the beams being that old, we're starting to give out. We had 2 years to get this done, or else it wouldn't have been able to be used anymore.
Working backwards from your September 7th date, I think you said of next year, being the 150th anniversary of the museum. When is the drop deadline for you to find out that the city's commitments there in order to start construction to make it timely so that you can have everything done in time for that? Are we beyond that now? We're at a critical stage?
We are at a critical stage. Ideally, we need to know by the end of the year.
Okay.
how we can move forward.
Right.
In terms of being able to complete the work, it is doable. It's a matter of, is the money available or not available? And that's the largest hurdle at this point. We're working through the last tenders to be able to finalize certain numbers. So
You've already gone to tender on some of the work.
absolutely.
And so 1.5 million is a shortfall. You're asking the city for $1 million. Where's the other 500,000 coming from?
We do have potentially another 500,000 in the pipeline through another federal program.
Oh, really? Congratulations. You've
Federal
done a
government has been very generous in supporting this project.
you've done a very good job on fundraising. Congratulations. Okay, I just want to thank you again for all your dedication. Are you related at all to the Vulcan who served on council in St. Boniface many years ago? No. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Councilor Rawadi, I didn't know if I saw your hand or not there.
Yeah, so it became $1 million project. Now it's a $6 million project. It's more enough, not just enough to get the doors open.
It would sound like it. The problem is that there are some scopes of work that have to do with hazardous materials. And for us to be able to move back into the building while those scopes of work are being done is just not reasonable. Neither is it possible to bring in school groups, public, or anything like that.
When the facility was open, how many people actually went to this museum?
We were looking at around 25,000 a year.
More than I would have guessed. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. I need a brief recess before we go into our reports. Give me 4 minutes and then we'll come back at 10 o'clock. Thank you. Apologies, we welcome you back to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development. Appreciate your patience for that brief break there. We'll go into our reports now. We have report number 1, the request to refund the inspection fee associated with vacant building, empty building fee invoice at 1140 Fairfield Avenue. Yes. Introduce our staff. I believe it's Mr. Burgess is here with us.
Yes, Community Services, Martin Miller, I think.
Martin's here. He's deferring over to Mr. Burgess. Welcome back.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the clerk circulated a submission from the applicant that did not meet the submission timeline. I would like to though move that it be added to the public record and considered at today's meeting.
Okay.
Do we have that printed off?
That seems fair.
Sure, I can print it off. I just need a moment to go print it. The printer is not.
Yeah, we will. I guess we can't hear from the public service while you're not here. That wouldn't be right. Okay, so yeah, we'll just sit here in silence for 2 seconds. It'll be printed and we'll get on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get the print ready, we can probably start and you can bring it to us after they.
Sure. Okay, that's fair enough. Mr. Burgess, please.
Good morning to the chair, councilors and colleagues. I'm Corey
Oh, sorry,
Burgess.
I apologize. Councillor Rawadi's motion to accept the
Yes.
submission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Please continue.
Good morning, chair, councilors and colleagues. I'm Corey Burgess. I'm the acting coordinator for bylaw enforcement operations for Community Services Licensing and Bylaw Enforcement. I'm joined today on Zoom by Aaron Price, bylaw enforcement coordinator for the vacant building bylaw. The bylaw enforcement coordinator may be called upon to provide additional details specific to the property and or communications with the property owner or the representative. I'll now enter a brief opening statement for the record and provide an overview of the matter before the committee. While I'm talking, I'll draw your attention to the enforcement summary and photos that were provided. Vacant building bylaw 79/2010 was adopted by council to regulate the condition of vacant buildings and discourage boardings. The bylaw provides guidelines for property owners to maintain their property. One of the main objectives is for the safety of first responders and the overall safety and well-being of the community. The empty building fee was added to the vacant building bylaw in 2019. This section was added in order to encourage owners who have long-term vacant buildings to occupy, reuse, or demolish. An empty building fee is the amount in the amount of 2% of the most current assessed value of the property is imposed annually on the property that remains vacant after they have had 3 annual inspections. Under the bylaw, the fee came into effect January 2020. This means the City of Winnipeg officers have been inspecting, re-inspecting, responding to complaints, issuing orders, doing order re-inspects, writing tickets and responding to community complaints, as well as speaking to complainants and counselors, as well as any other concerned individuals on the status of the property for a period of up to 3 years. The money collected from the empty building directed to the Home Rehabilitation Investment Reserve with the City of Winnipeg to be reinvested in affordable housing initiatives. Specific to the matter before the committee today, the appellant is appealing the empty building fee for 1140 Fairfield, which has been under enforcement as a vacant building since 2018. In accordance with section 13.11 of the vacant building bylaw, once bylaw enforcement officers have conducted and invoiced for 3 vacant building inspections, an empty building fee invoice is sent. This is done automatically once they hit that threshold. The appellant is representing a company that owns a property that has been subject to 7 empty building fees, 7 vacant building inspections. The empty building fee continues to be assessed once per year until the property is confirmed occupied. The bylaw intends to ensure owners maintain their property to avoid unnecessary risks to first responders and the community, and incentivizes owners to take action to maintain the property and not leave it vacant for extended periods of time. Licensing and bylaw enforcement is aware of a change in ownership on or about December 2nd of 2024 from a previous owner to the company represented by the appellant. The new owners were sent a letter and a brochure on December 3rd, which outlined the expectations and costs associated with vacant buildings. Additionally, there were orders caveated to the title, time of purchase. They would have been aware this building was vacant and under enforcement. This owner has been responsible for the property for 1 vacant building inspection, and this is their first empty building fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
We have a copy of the letter here from the resident or the owner. Has he indicated how much time he needs to do the work that he's under doing it right now?
Apologies, Counselor, I haven't seen that letter, so I can't speak to it, and I don't have any indication from the appellant on timeframes.
This is the problem with submissions being made. The clerk's department did request that this be made by noon so that it could be circulated. It was not received until the evening hours, where we do not expect the public service to be on the clock at 7 o'clock at night to read submissions that are due and have been given an extension to be submitted.
There must have been some sort of communication between yourself and the appellant.
Our team has been in contact with them by sending letters, orders. Property owners do not always make us aware of their intentions, nor do intentions always match outcomes. Some buy vacant buildings for different reasons. They want to flip them, they want to occupy them. Sometimes they just want to sit on them. So I can't speak to what their intentions are. They would have to speak to what their plans are and their timeframes.
So you're telling me that there's been absolutely no communication with the appellant in terms of the work that he's doing right now, that you have not heard, you or your staff have not heard anything back from him on that in any way, shape or form?
Okay, so I'm not saying that. We are aware that the work is being done, and actually the photos we submitted do show progress towards compliance.
All right, so you have been in contact with him, or you're not saying you've been in contact with him?
I have not personally been in contact.
Oh, or your staff?
Yes, our team has had some contact.
All
I
right,
can bring the bylaw enforcement coordinator online.
sure, let's do
And
that.
speak specifically to any communications.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burgess. We do have support here for Mr. Burgess to speak to and answer Councillor Wyatt's question.
Well, is it your bylaw enforcement officer? Who is this bylaw enforcement officer?
This is Aaron Price. This is the vacant building bylaw enforcement coordinator.
Okay, wonderful.
Morning, Aaron. I'm not sure if you caught Councillor Wyatt's question or you'd like him to repeat it.
I would like him to repeat it, please.
What communication have you had with the owner, and what have they indicated? We have a letter now saying that they're doing work on the project, that they've invested significant dollars. They need more time. They're not specific on the time they need. What information can you give us pertaining to that?
There's been 2 conversations had with the owner. One was on March 10th, 2025. The owner called us regarding the Schedule A inspection, which is the yearly inspection. He inquired regarding why the inspection was going forward. We explained our process that until it is either occupied or demolished, vacant buildings are
enforceable. And we had a second phone call with the owner of the building on March 31st, 2025, after the inspection. And it was explained what we found during the inspections, and why the inspection was still occurred.
So has any indication been made to you, further my question again, has any indication been made to you in terms of a time frame of when this work is going to be completed to meet the city standards that we require? So that it's
No.
vacant?
No, the owner has not given any indication of a timeline.
Okay.
Question. Yes, Counselor Santos.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the submission of the public service and looking at the March 26th, 2025. It looks like renovations are being done on the inside. Obviously, building permits would need to be pulled. So at what point of time does it trigger, from vacant to, obviously there's movement to a building permit where, these empty fees don't apply anymore. Could you help me understand that a little bit? Because we're seeing that there is movement, and I'm assuming they would have applied for building permits to do the renos.
Yes, Counselor. So the way the bylaw reads currently, and I know there are discussions ongoing that you'll have on other agenda items. Once it's vacant, it remains vacant until occupied or demolished.
Okay.
So at present, it remains a vacant building at the time of the inspection and at the time of the invoice for empty building fee. It was still subject to the conditions of the vacant building bylaw.
Okay. Whether or not a building permit is been applied for or not, or a development permit has been applied or not.
The department certainly takes that into account, whether we're issuing penalty notices on tickets for orders.
Okay.
But in terms of whether or not it is subject to the conditions of the bylaw, it still meets the definition of being vacant and being a building.
Okay, so the fees that are being applied right now are what? Remind me again?
Before us today is the empty building fee.
Oh, just the fee. Okay, so there's not technically orders to or citations to bring the building up to code or XYZ.
There are orders, but that's not what's before us today.
Okay.
It's the empty building fee, which is assessed automatically based on how long it has been a vacant building.
And we've changed those fees, right? In the past.
Yeah, when they were first introduced in 2019, it was 1%.
Yeah.
Of the assessed value of the property. It has been raised to 2% to add additional incentive for properties not to remain vacant for extended periods of time.
With the previous owner, I know we're not really talking about past owners, but there were comments made by the appellant in here saying that the property was neglected by the original owner. Could you confirm if the that vacant fee was applied? You said there were caveats, but they were never paid off?
We caveat our orders to the property to make sure that they endure should there be a change in ownership, and that as owners are buying properties, they're aware that we're involved.
Okay.
In this case, we did have orders caveated to the property.
Okay.
There were other enforcement actions underway with the previous owner, but that wouldn't be part of what we're here to discuss today.
Any other questions at this time? Mover.
Okay, hold on. I just.
Well, I guess.
Okay, I move that the condition, where is it here? Is this page 2? Yes. Page 2? Okay. I move that the conditions outlined in section 24 of bylaw 79, 2010, have not been met, and the request to refund the fees associated with the empty building fee invoice 1432243/280 dated July 24th, 2025 be denied. I can say some comments
you don't need to.
No, my thinking, Mr. Chairman, is that we got a letter here from him. It's not like he's trying to ignore the committee. It looks like he's doing investment on the property. I would say, I would prefer let's give him a month, but get him back here. So let's find out how much time he needs rather than hammer him with these fees. The purpose of the fees is to try to bring them to the table to do the repairs. That it is achieved. Let's find out how much time he needs, and as long as it's reasonable, the process in the past we've done, and when we brought this bylaw in way back when, was to try to work with property owners to get their problem in mind, not for the purpose of being punitive,
Mhm.
But if punitive, if necessary, right? And if they're doing nothing, but this property owner has indicated he is moving in the direction that we want him to move as a city. I'm kind of the view of what we've done in the past, which is to find out how much time he needs. Unfortunately, the letter doesn't say that. I'd like to know exactly what that is for the staff to contact them back and give us some time to do that. That would be my thought, Councillor.
Councillor Santos,
Question
yeah,
before we move forward.
there is a comment here. The director was hoping to chime in, or you can go ahead first if you like.
Yeah, just a question.
Okay.
So with this new empty building fee, will this be a caveat on the new title?
Not at this time.
When does that occur?
Not at this time.
Okay.
We typically would not be caveating this invoice. That would be a lien. We typically, again, use caveat as a tool for our orders. This would go through collections before it would get to that point.
Okay,
Now, I'm not sure what kind of.
so the invoice has been issued, he's appealing and we're requesting a refund. How many days does he have to pay for it?
The invoice comes due after 60 days.
Okay, so he's got 60 days to pay for it. He doesn't pay for it,
And I will-
continues to do the work. Then what goes after that?
Great question. I was going to say that in council's wisdom, part of what went into the empty building fee is a refund option. So should they become occupied throughout the current year that is being invoiced for, there is a prorated element of refund that they can qualify for.
Okay.
So the sooner they get to the point of occupying, which
Yeah.
again is the incentive portion of this,
Yeah.
the larger that amount would equal.
Okay, so I feel like there's due process and time, and he's got obviously time to get this place occupied, hopefully by the winter time, and then he can request a refund at that time.
You're saying make him pay and then get a refund after?
No, he doesn't have to pay. They just said he doesn't have to pay. He just gets invoiced and he has 60 days to pay,
Then you have to,
right? And then after that, he can get the place occupied by the winter time, and then once he proves that it's been occupied, then he can request a refund.
and then the administration denies the refund request and then he's back here again, right?
Sorry?
Then the administration denies the refund request and then he's back here again requesting it.
No,
because he would be
it's built
occupied.
into the bylaw. We follow that's written in the.
No, I'm just saying that, right? That's the process.
bylaw.
You know, so if he does the work within 60 days and the bill has been, you issued a bill, but he has to pay it, how does he get his refund?
Well, to answer your question, Counselor, the invoice comes due after 60 days from the date of issue.
Right?
We would expect payment on that,
Right.
and that is the invoice process. The refund process is outlined in the bylaw and would be enforced according to how it's written. So when they come forward and request us to confirm occupancy, we would go out and confirm occupancy. On the date we confirm it, there would be a prorated element looking at the period of time that invoice covered up to the point where we confirmed it occupied.
So that's what I'm saying. So the period of time, we charge them what, probably after 60 days? Well, how much of it?
I don't have that because it would be based on when they complete the work and they reach occupancy, and then we would look at what that date is relative to the
60%, 70% of it.
It depends on when they're occupied, sir. I can't answer that question without.
But at this
when
point,
they
you
get
issued it in March. Let's say, well, no, it should be easy calculation. You issued it in March. And you say 60 days from now, what would be that approximate amount?
To answer your question in vague hypothetical terms, if they were, if they were occupied 3 months into the period that was invoiced for, they would be eligible for the remaining portion of that year.
No, but the issue was issued in March, right?
Yes.
And if it's 60 days from now, that's more than 3 months. That's more like 9 months. So it'd be prorated based on 9 months. You'd have to pay 9 months of the 12.
Your math looks like this.
So that's a very significant amount. So let's say if he wants to get the refund back on that, how does he do that based on the bylaw?
I'm not familiar with what that process would look like, because at this point, I don't believe he'd be able to appeal the invoice.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So you're charging.
Perhaps Director Morris can provide additional comment here.
Thank you.
And just to go back to the earlier question regarding timing, the building permits were issued for this single family detached home at 1140 Fairfield on April 14 of this year. They are ongoing and are currently at final inspections stage. I'm not sure when they will be ready for those final inspections. There are currently no defects that are showing on at the Amanda system. They have electrical and plumbing permits as well as the full renovation. They did tear out the interior down to the studs and redid everything. And while hydro was taken out years ago, it's back in. The house is on city water supply, but not city sewer. So there are holding tanks in the front yard.
Okay, with that information, Councilor Santos, would you be willing to give this individual a 30-day? It looks like the job of enforcement has worked. They went out, they communicated, the message was received, and according to planning, that they're doing the work and very, very close. Is there an appetite to give them an additional?
30-day extension?
Would that suffice? I don't want to give timelines and then have to come back and do it over again.
What would the 30-day extension do?
Well, the
This
key would be
he still
the,
has to pay for the invoice.
well, the 30-day extension would be for the staff to get a hold of him and to see what his time frame is. And then we would have an idea. Right, then they can report back to the committee and say, okay, he's gonna have it done by such and such date. As long as it's reasonable, we can work with that. If it's not reasonable, we can't.
So
He's asking for another year.
Mr. Burgess, they sound like they're almost done. You guys went out there and did your job, mission accomplished. How do we make this as a situation where a slap on the wrist, so to speak, and say, if you do it again, we're
I
going
would
to
suggest the department would say, rather than coming back, perhaps the committee would like to consider holding them accountable for a portion of the invoice as opposed to the full invoice amount.
And what was the, remind me again, what was the full invoice amount? Appendix A, I can do this.
9,720. So let's say 50% of that. He would pay 50% of that
And how long did this building sit vacant?
We just
since
bought it.
2018.
Just bought it in December though.
He bought it, there's caveats on it. He's gonna sell the property in a very well-established neighborhood and make quite a bit of money off of this property. I'm pretty sure he can afford to pay 50% of $9,000. With all due respect.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't want to make assumptions of what the sale price would be, but if there's an appetite from the committee to reduce the fine, Madam Clerk, that's something that's within this committee's jurisdiction. Okay, and how many times did the department visit?
Twice.
There's a cost to that, right?
The last photo I saw was March. So from between now and March, has it been visited between now and March of March 2025?
For the enforcement coordinator, I don't believe we've been there since March for this property, but I'll ask Aaron to come back on the line and provide that. Go ahead, Aaron, if you can tell us how many on-sites have been done with this property in total and since March of this year.
The last on-site was for the Schedule A inspection. There has not been another on-site since March 26th was the last time we were there.
So the photos.
Okay, I'll leave that with the committee then. If we choose to move forward, as Councillor Santos had indicated, I'll support that if we choose to
Okay,
reduce the
so I'll
fine.
rescind my motion.
Okay.
And I'll look to Leah, request 50% the refund of the fees. So the conditions, so I move that the conditions outlined in section 24 of bylaw 79, 2010 have been met and request a partial 50% refund of the fees associated with the empty building fee invoice 1432243/2010 dated July 24, 2025 be, what am I approving or denying it?
So you could, the conditions have been met,
Okay.
and the request for a refund be approved and a refund in the amount of however much you'd like was be granted.
Okay, what's the 50%?
$4,860.
Thank you.
Okay, so $4,860 be granted.
Okay, we'll call it. Yes, Councilor.
I'd like to speak to the motion. I won't be supporting the motion. I believe entrepreneurs like this should be welcomed in our city. We shouldn't be punitively nailing them and saying, well, they're gonna make lots of money. Let's get them. No, this is an entrepreneur who's trying to turn this project or property around. We should be encouraging people like this, not discouraging them. He's indicated good faith that he's working on it. I'm thinking requesting some time to allow him the time indicated, and encouraging him to buy even more properties like this around the city to renovate. It should be something we should be encouraging. But if we want to be punitive and we want to drive these people onto the city and buy derelict properties elsewhere to fix, let's just keep doing this. Because that's what we're going to be doing.
Okay,
I won't be supporting the
Well,
motion.
I was gonna vote against it for the opposite reason. I don't think we should be reducing it. These fees are set. This is part of the cost of doing business. The person knew they had an opportunity to be here to speak. They chose not to. But again, to get the motion through, I am going to support it at 50%, but I do so in duress to a degree.
The rest.
okay. And I suppose I'll add comment to that, just in regards to we are being lenient, in my opinion, here to reduce the fee. So I hope that this is a clear signal to this individual and others that these projects need to move along in a timely manner, because I wouldn't be accommodating this in the future. Call the question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Councillor Wyatt reported in opposition. 3-1, the motion passes. We can move on to item number 2, which is the variance and conditional use applications for development permits made under the new Schedule AC of the Winnipeg zoning bylaw.
Mr. Chair, at the time of writing this report, in terms of for submission to the SPCP&D, there had not been any applications for variances or conditional uses for Schedule AC.
So moved.
Great. Moved by Councillor Browati. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. Move on to item number 3, which is the graffiti on vacant buildings. This is to be received as information. Would we like to hear any comments on this from the public service?
Please.
Councillor Santos has indicated yes. I believe that Mr. Miller is joining us here.
Good morning, everyone. Martin Miller, manager for License and Bylaw Enforcement. Yeah, so on May 8th, 2025, the Standing Committee on Property Planning and Development directed the Public Service to report back and up to 120 days on adding an automatic fee waiver for graffiti control to the application for vacant buildings as long as the building is designated as a vacant building under the vacant building bylaw. So this is a motion brought forward. We looked at it. Graffiti on vacant buildings is a City of Winnipeg bylaw offense under the vacant building bylaw. Under the City of Winnipeg Charter Act, there are 2 ways that the city may remove this from a vacant building. The first is issuing a compliance order for the property owner, which we do. If the owner does not comply and the timelines for the appeal have passed, the City of Winnipeg Charter permits the city to enter onto the property to remove the graffiti. And this is in line with other remediations that councillors are aware of. So remediation of garbage on property or remediation of grass. The city can also remediate. The other avenue is if they acquire permission from the property owner. This is also done via our Public Works Department, who has that in their repertoire to do. So since this motion has come out, we actually have partnered with Public Works. to be able to remediate graffiti on vacant building via the avenues that are already set in the charter. We cannot just automatically put something onto a property owner and access their property without their permission or without their knowledge, as the motion indicates. So those are the two major things or ways that we can
Go ahead, keep going.
yeah, sorry. Those are the two major ways that we can do it and are doing it. Since the motion actually has been put forth, we have been successful at removing graffiti with our Public Works Department and charging it back to the vacant building owners. I want to stress that if vacant building owners do reach out to the City of Winnipeg Public Works Department and give them permission to do it, I'm pretty sure that the fee is very minimal. If we go the other route via enforcement, it's quite a bit more because the work is being undertaken by the department via remediation of an order.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. Question here from Councilor Santos.
Okay, so a couple, just, I guess, scenarios that are running through my head with respect to some vacant buildings, whether they're under probate or whether the owners do not live in the City of Winnipeg. How would that play out? Would you then be, because if you can't get a hold of the owner, how would you play that out?
Yeah, so how we serve orders is via registered mail. So the registered mail, the City of Winnipeg Charter identifies that you have to serve an order to the person that the property is attached to. So if I'm serving it to Councilor Santos, I'll go to our assessment and taxation department and I'll say the vacant building at 510 Main Street. What's the address for service for the property owner? And then what we do is we serve it via registered mail to that address for service as it's attached to the vacant building. And our City of Winnipeg Charter also states it is deemed served after 3 days. So, people may or may not pick up their registered mail with their opinions on anything comes good via registered mail. So if their address for service is in Vancouver, address for service is somewhere in the United States, we do the exact same. We will send it registered mail to that address of service. And after 3 days, and that's where our compliance date comes in, it's deemed served, and then we're able to go and do our remediation.
What are you doing again? Due to the lack of a post office, what are you doing right now?
Great question. So with the postal strike, we're unable to at this point serve outside of Winnipeg. So, but we are personally serving. So another thing that we do, if it's personally served to an address, then that's what we're doing resource wise. Then again, everything applies to that. Once it's been served, we can do remediation almost immediately after that. We are also looking for, because we do have a number of properties out that are owned, we're looking for alternate service. So either bail bondsmen, courier service, that sort of stuff. But we have to weigh, of course, the cost to our citizens. But again, a great question.
Yes, Councilor Wyatt.
Last month, we had a situation here where Mr. Burgess was speaking to it, not yourself, whereby somebody was going to be fined on, or basically requiring to clean the graffiti. But within a week, they had, or around basically the same time, they had already filed for the building permit and development permit to redo the property. And yet the City of Winnipeg still pursued him on the graffiti, knowing full well that he was already moving ahead and wasted his time, basically requiring him to come here with a lawyer, wasted his time, our time, when something like that could have been dealt with internally. Is that going to end? If we know if somebody pulled a building permit and a development permit on a project, and we're still going after him on graffiti, that's going to be removed as part of that work. Should have never been here at the committee.
So it's a bylaw violation. Our job by council for our officers and our coordinators is to enforce the bylaw.
Right.
So when we get a complaint via 311,
Yeah.
when we get a complaint via counselors, when we get a complaint via counselor 311, are expected to go out and investigate the complaint. Now, when we do our job and we identify a violation, we cannot just leave and say, hey, like, there's garbage on the property, there's graffiti on the property, it's a vacant building. Maybe I'm only going to enforce, garbage. That's just not the way the job works. Our officers are expected to identify bylaw violations via the majority, via complaints. And that's an expectation from our citizens of Winnipeg, that we are out doing our job and we are addressing all bylaw complaints.
I'm not suggesting you're not doing your job.
But you have, sorry, go ahead.
I'm suggesting that if somebody's coming in and filing and paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for the development permit and building permits to do a property, right? We know now they're gonna be cleaning up the graffiti because they're doing the work. Because the graffiti is coming down as part of the work, which we can see. But the city's operating in silos. You got one permit department here issuing permits, development permits, and then you got your division going and doing the enforcement, which we appreciate. There has to be some communication and common sense that kicks in here at this point. It says, oh, wow, okay, this guy's moving. That's wonderful. Let's drop this pet, where we see it's coming forward. He had to appeal to this committee, and then this committee had to make a decision to drop the whole thing, which could have been done internally by staff.
So
Just
we don't,
looking at the obvious common sense that this was being filed.
so we don't operate in silos. We have an open communication with all of our colleagues, as I just mentioned, the graffiti report. And we work with Public Works. We have a great rapport with PP&D. But if we're speaking specifically about the property that you indicated, if you go drive by there, is the graffiti still on the building? Yes, it is. And it's in the order. So I think we're getting a little bit mixed up. An order is not punitive. An order is saying that there's a bylaw violation, which needs to be addressed. If it gets addressed in the demo, that's great. There has been no tickets issued for graffiti on that property that you're indicating. So again, our job is to go out and identify bylaw violations. We do that via an order. We do that via communication to the property owner that he understands that it's a violation. He understands that there's been a complaint against his property. And if it's being addressed via demolition, great. The order will be closed at some time. But as Mr. Burgess indicated, that there had been no punitive fees or fines associated with that order. And saying that, well, we need to close the order because it's going to be addressed by a demo. Okay, yeah, it will be closed once the demolition occurs. And again, it's just identifying that we got a complaint. We received a complaint via 311. We went out, our officers did their job, they addressed it. And then the next part of their job is to make sure that the property owners understand that it's a violation of the bylaw and it needs to be addressed.
Okay. So this item is here to be received the information. Is there appetite to move on this?
Well, hold on, just a quick question. So
Specific to the item.
sure, specific to the item, I guess, I'm very sympathetic. I mean, we have the graffiti program that we've set up throughout the city. Public Works has their program. I don't know what their level of funding is right now, what it was before. Don't know what it is now. We also have a program that's run through all the business zones, where we fund them to help us with the graffiti cleanup throughout the city. Graffiti has become, once again in our city, more than ever, a blight, I think. In terms of what the motion is saying, I could see, some benefit to what they're asking for here. If you give the same powers as is pertaining to the vacant building bylaw, why can't we consider that or look at that?
So automatically being able to enter to somebody's property, we just can't do. We have to give notice. And that's what.
That pertains to graffiti.
Correct. Well, it pertains to pretty much anything, right? If we have a complaint about an interior of a property as well, we have to provide notice to the property.
So, but they're trying to say here that powers under the vacant building bylaw or more significant than the powers that you have right now with graffiti, is that correct? They want to tie it to the vacant building bylaw.
Well, the motion is that they wanted an automatic, like, I don't know exact the wording, let me
The
pull it.
wording is that they want to add it to the application for a vacant building, an automatic waiver for graffiti removal as long as the building is, okay.
Yeah.
And I recall that we've requested this before in terms of a charter change from the province. Have we done that?
Not that I'm aware of, Counselor.
I'm pretty sure we have.
I'm ready to move this, Mr.
Thank you. Counselor Brawadi, your intention is to move as information.
Yes,
And where did this come from?
City Center.
Who moved it?
Counselor Gilroy.
Council Gilroy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Counselor
I
Wyatt
will support Councilor Gilroy.
recorded in opposition. Moving on, item number 4, exemptions from fees issued during the redevelopment of vacant buildings. Anybody like to hear from public service, or we had a chance to review the
it's an extension of time, I guess, right?
That's what we're discussing here.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Wyatt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Sorry, just to let the committee know that this one does have a critical path that goes to that stops at P&D, but this does have to go up to council.
For approval as the extension?
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Wyatt, could you take the chair on item number 5, please?
Sure.
I'd like to, the public service recommendation on this is 180 days. I don't support that at this point in time. I'd like to reduce that to 30 days, at which time we can discuss further offline with the department, then come back for a more fulsome discussion.
Everybody's heard the motion. Any discussion on it? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. I'll take the chair back. Appreciate that, Counselor.
And Counselor, sorry, it's same with this one as well. This one is an extension of time request that goes up to council.
Thank you.
6.
Item number 6, 61 Princess Street, part of 1220 Pacific Avenue in the Pointe du Bois bushland. Mr. Chappell has joined us here. Just a brief overview here, if at all possible.
Yeah, there's a few properties that we're like to exchange or that we like to sell to Manitoba Hydro in order to complete an exchange. So in order to finalize that, we first need to declare these properties surplus. So one is a parking lot in downtown, which ideally we will be eventually developed by some downtown developers. There's some bushland outside the city that I'm not exactly sure why the city has that, or what we know is an old, probably Winnipeg Hydro property that should have transferred to Manitoba Hydro. And then there's some land that is on Pacific that's been used by Manitoba Hydro for some time. That's beside the public works facility. So looking to declare those 3 properties surplus and eventually get to a land exchange.
Okay. Counselor Wyatt.
Okay, so the one I don't give a hoot about the one outside the city, but the one on Princess. What is Hydro intent for that land?
They own, there's a bit of a history to that one that.
Yeah, I remember they wanted a big substation there and they moved it.
Yeah, so they have the office building at 55 Princess, which was old Winnipeg Hydro infrastructure, and that transferred to them as part of the Winnipeg Hydro sale. But 61 Princess was a separate property, and there was some dispute of whether that was supposed to go with 55 Princess originally. In the end, we've agreed that should transfer, and so the intent there would be that there will be redevelopment between with 55 and 61 Princess, and essentially Hydro wants to dispose of that property, and Center Ventures looking at that right now, and there's a development proposal on that site.
So why are we, I guess what I'm looking at it from our advantage as a city, Center Ventures, our agency. Why are we giving the whole property to Manitoba Hydro so they can turn around and charge Center Venture for it versus us being able to leverage having the property and acquiring the balance of it via Center Venture?
Yeah.
Why couldn't we, I mean, in the past, what we would do is we would issue this property to Center Venture and let them worry about the balance of it.
There's a bigger play here in terms of the entire land exchange package that we want to advance and get approved. So there'll be more details to come forward regarding that later. Ultimately, Hydro likely has legal basis to say that they deserve that property based on the terms of the Winnipeg Hydro sale.
Okay, I hear you. So they'll try to claim that, but we still have it, and possession is 9/10 of the law. And I guess again, I mean, if we have this property, Hydro, my concern is that Hydro's gonna do a big substation here. We're gonna run into the situation where they're gonna put up an ugly substation with their ugly walls right in the middle of our heritage district. And, we had to battle them last time to push them out a little further down there on, Notre Dame, I believe, outside of the heritage designated area. Why don't we just retain it and then simply say to them, look, we have this, we're negotiating with you on the balance of your property, end of story, and look, and empower Center Venture to do the job that we put them in place to do.
I mean, to some extent, we've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
But also all the parties as part of this, Center Venture, Hydro, the city, the developer, they're all working together for the same vision. So I think Hydro they really want to get rid of their holding. There's a liability to them holding on to this property. So they're trying to get out of the downtown. That's specific.
So they're not trying to retain it for the purpose of putting a big subsidy.
They're motivated to move this.
And are they willing to work with Center Venture in terms of being the sole source for this and being reasonable in terms of what they're prepared to do? That
Yeah,
we're not gonna give up our land and pay through the nose to acquire it back?
No, I haven't been part of those specific conversations, so I know Matt Dryberg has.
Okay.
And there's definitely a willingness and a serious motivation by Hydro to get this done.
So Dryberg is involved?
Pardon me?
Dryberg is involved in
Yes,
this?
he's been involved, the Center Venture rep for the city, so he's
Okay.
well aware of what's going on.
And he supports this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is all I need to say that Matt supported?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's
It should lead all of your.
Started that.
Yeah.
Start leave with that.
And Matt,
Okay, Councillor Brawadi has comment here.
I trust you too, Gordon, just,
The administrative report indicates that the city has done some level or some work towards remediation at some point in the past. If this land was supposed to have been transferred as part of the Winnipeg Hydro sale back 25 years ago, would there be any recouping of any of the costs that the city has put into any level of remediation, recognizing that it's not a remediated site?
No, that was part of the arrangement with the sale. Also, the level of costs wouldn't be terribly significant because the site is still actually contaminated. We remediated to the point of just retaining it as a parking lot use.
Okay.
So it would have been a significant cost had we gone any further, but we avoided that.
Okay. Right.
Are there gonna be any restrictions on the use of a parking lot there if this is approved?
There's a restriction just based on the contamination of the site. It really can only stay as a parking lot unless someone expends some serious cash to dig that whole thing out.
Okay, but if we give this up to Hydro, will Hydro are they going to come back and say, no, nobody parking there, and then we have to deal with the blowback from whomever?
No, because they'll dispose of both properties, 55, what they own, and 61 as a package, and the entire package will get redeveloped.
Have they indicated what their intent is, or sorry, are they gonna sell to a developer for commercial housing, what?
Yeah, it'd be a mixed use. I think there's some developed plans created. Again, I haven't been part of that conversation. I know there's been discussions.
Yeah, don't take it too far down the road here, but, okay,
I'm ready to move the public service recommendation.
Brawadi moves, public service recommendation, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Moving on, item number 7, subdivision rezoning 101 and 103 Sherbrooke Street and 685 Westminster Avenue.
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Beach is here.
yeah, this is from City Center subdivision rezoning, 101 Sherbrooke. That's the Sherbrooke Inn site with the parking lot in the back. Excellent project. Parking lots being rezoned as RMU, being redeveloped with 86 multifamily units, 6 stories, ground floor commercial, 8 affordable units, a car share, and part of the design is fronting 7 units with a front access right onto Furby off that empty lot. So it'll address the street nicely. Public service was supportive. The area councillor and the committee were supportive.
And no servicing changes to the community.
I'll move
Okay,
it.
developer here.
Well, the applicant was George Sibinel from Sibinel Architects.
They do nice work. Okay, I think I heard Councillor
Yep,
Santos.
I move City Center's
Great,
recommendation.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can
Carried.
we request a quick bio break and more coffee before we move on to the next?
Could we deal with item number 8? We have members of public service who have been patiently waiting here and.
Item 8. Oh, the museum.
Thank you.
I felt like this was gonna
We'll
be.
get into this quickly and keeping in mind that Councillor Santos would like to buy over. All right, please, Mr. Taylor's here to give us a quick rundown and then we can get into it.
You betcha. Thank you very much. Rob Taylor, Director of Assets and Project Management. I'm here with Jen Hansel, the Superintendent of Planning and Portfolio Management. So just to give an update on the projects that are currently going on. Roofing repairs have been completed. I believe that the museum had to be vacated for that because it was a structural issue. That has been completed. Currently, the HVAC upgrades are going on right now. So they had an outdated system, kind of a boiler system there that had to be replaced with an HVAC system. So replacing all the ducting through the building. The work is happening kind of mostly on the third floor where the majority of people are actually working. Yeah, that's currently going on. And then that is in the, give me 1 second, I believe that's in the detailed design phase right now. And then following that, there is a plan for window restoration and landscaping. Obviously, there needs some abatement. It is an older building. As this is a lease with the city of Winnipeg, typically it is the board's responsibility to find funding for any improvements to the building. They typically get grants as well. The city has contributed grants in the past. We've contributed funds for some design work on this as well. And yeah, that's currently where we are. The city has also found a spot for them at 219 Caranche, which is the old St. Boniface City Hall that they could use in the interim at a reduced rental rate.
Thank you very much. Any questions for this answer, Mr.
I
Taylor?
was kind of surprised to hear that we don't have a practice there of deducting them out of their budget for a municipal accommodation for the purpose of automatic support for this sort of thing, when other museums have that. Why is that?
I think it's because, so they do get an operating grant, it's fairly sizable. We do help, MA does help with everyday sort of stuff. But I think what happened was in the 90s, there was a big reno of the building. So I think it was good for some time. Now we're getting to a period where some systems are starting to fail and the capital projects that are popping up are kind of the issue. So we do help, like MA does. It's not as formal as it could be, but we do help with fire monitoring, security, different stuff like that. Stuff that pops up with the building, like everyday maintenance stuff. But the museum does take on quite a bit of it themselves as well.
So then what are we at in terms of, they've said they got $3.5 million of other government funding that they don't want to jeopardize. They're asking us, we were at the table apparently with $350,000 worth of funding, city of Winnipeg. They need another top up of $1 million. Is this something that could be considered in the upcoming capital so that we don't lose that funding from the other levels of government? And we can get this work done so they can be open in time for their 150th anniversary. Like that seems to be the more pressing issue.
175.
Hey?
They're 25 years older. They're
Sorry, 175. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Yep.
Thank you.
Obviously, we could take this back to the executive and see the guidance they want to go with and potentially put it through as a budget ask. I know we're nearing the final stages of the budget there. I'm not sure how much flexibility. Councilor Barwadi, maybe want to get into that. But it's always an ask the public service could put forward.
Yeah. Because I understand that there's also provincial money that potentially being offered up and that it'll be somewhat required that the city step up further as well to access that money is what I'm hearing. Have you heard that as well?
Typically, that's the way the funding agreements work. We can follow up the museum to see if there's any contingency saying you can only get provincial funding if there is a city portion funding. We can follow up the museum definitely to verify that. Again, this motion came from East Kelowna and Trans-Kelowna Community Committee. I think we've had a good update here today and we understand the situation a little bit better. Again, Unicity happened before I was born, about 50 years ago. I do think it's time we reevaluate all of these community museums. I think we need a better museum strategy. So at this time, I'm ready to receive this verbal report as information.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes, the travesty of Unicity in 1972, where we were forced to join the rest of city, is still ongoing and has been a failure in my opinion. But that's another story. We're here today to deal with the museum that is a historical asset to not just Winnipeg, St. Boniface, not just Winnipeg, but all of Western Canada, Native heritage itself, in terms of the Franco Canadian, Francophone Canadian heritage, the settling of, the Métis, the crucial involvement of, the Roman Catholic Church, the setting up of St. Boniface Hospital, the Grey Nuns who set up this facility. If it wasn't for them coming on the prairies, many people would have died here back then. Prior to healthcare, prior to our medical system we have today, it was probably better care than we have today, actually. But I guess my question is, like, you know, we received the information and the issue doesn't go away. How do we address this internally so that we don't lose the funding of that's coming forward from the federal government? Because I think they would lose it if they can't facilitate the entire project. That's my concern. What do you recommend so that we can keep this project moving?
So for the most part, to date, it seems like most of the funding that they have got has come from a grant, which is a little different than, say, a federal or provincial contribution factor. You know, you'd have to you'd have to be able to come up with a portion of the funding, and the province or the feds would come up with the other portion of the funding. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure how the funding works there from the feds or the province currently. I'm not 100% sure how to move forward on this.
So is there any, based on your knowledge of the project, is there any work that can be deferred in light of the lack of support or funding from the city? Is there any, possibly from this committee or the members of EPC? Is there any way there's work to be deferred that would still allow them to open? Or is it kind of like, basically we're talking, this is the bare minimum they have to get done if they're going to open again?
I would say the two projects, the HVAC upgrades, probably all be done at the same time because you're opening things up. Things have been opened. I guess it's possible with the window restoration and landscaping, they could actually divide that into, you know, like separate floors at a time. It may end up resulting in an additional cost as mobilization and demobilization for a contractor, but it is a possibility.
Now, how much is that worth approximately of the total project?
I believe that was around $1.6 million.
Okay. I would prefer a motion rather than receive information determined that the public service be directed to work with the board and see what could be considered going forward to try to resolve the outstanding funding, whether it be additional funding or possibly phasing the project. Phasing the project may be our approach that might be more a greater appetite to members of the budget committee. I can appreciate the budget committee's tough scenario. I know what it was like to be Mr. No, and at one time, and I hear where Councillor Bawdy's coming from. I just think maybe we could work with them to phase it, and therefore, you know, we show some goodwill in that sense.
Councillor Bawdy, you have a motion on the table. Do you want to?
Yeah, again, if the public service can provide some assistance and direction to the committee, I appreciate they have limited capacity perhaps to oversee these types of projects. So if the public service is amenable to that, I'll withdraw my motion. And again, the idea being that hopefully, you know, using some phasing as opposed to additional dollars, they find a way to get the doors open for 175. So I'll withdraw my motion.
Is that something the public service, candidly, what's the,
Well, we're not, like, the museum's running the show, so they've engaged the consultants, like, they're running these projects. So we can give insight, and we have been giving insight all along. Like, MA has been involved. There's a lot of in-kind staff time, I will just say that, other than the cash contribution and the reduced rent. We've had designers actually designing stuff, but ultimately, we can't tell them to stop. We can give them insight and have them phase it, but it'll be their decision.
Not to try to tell them, but rather to work with them on the concept of phasing so that we can at least keep the dialogue going. That's the whole idea.
I guess my interest right now is getting the doors open for 175 within existing dollars and or no additional contribution from the city of Winnipeg.
Right.
And as Jen said, we provide a ton of information and oversight there, and we can always make recommendations there and say we think this might be a better way of handling it there.
so might I suggest then that the motion also look at recommend that this committee direct the public service to give a recommendation to St. Boniface Museum to phase, because like what Ms. Hansel had just said, that they're not running the show, St. Boniface Museum is. So ultimately it's up to them.
Does the clerk have some perhaps language for us yet?
So the motion is that the public service be directed to work with the board of directors of the St. Boniface Museum to provide a recommendation on phasing the renovation project.
That sounds reasonable. Within existing city funding.
Sorry, Mike.
within existing city.
Public service comfortable with that? Okay, thank you. And that is, Councilor Brody had withdrawn his motion to receive the report as information, tabling that. When the clerk is prepared, I'll just get you to read that back to us.
So the motion, and sorry, I'm not, we just need a mover on this one. Is that the public service work with the board of directors of the St. Boniface Museum to provide a recommendation to the museum on phasing their renovation project within existing city funding.
Okay, so the mover is Councilor Brody, you're moving?
Well, Council White wants to do it. All right.
Oh, no, Council Water.
I can absolutely. All right. Okay, look at this.
That is moved by Mr. Chairman of Finance, Councilor Rawadi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate you folks joining us here today to give us clarity on that. Let's take our quick break here. We'll reconvene at 11:15. That's 11:15.
Perfect.
I took.
Welcome back to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development for this October 9th of 2025. We are in our regular reports. Item number 9.
That's why it's back. Well,
There we go. We will deal with it. We're going to skip over it, but we will deal with item number 9, which is North Committee Room Bird Strike Mitigation.
Oh, yes.
Councilor, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, we were in the committee there the other day.
And a bird hit the window.
And a bird hit the window and flew away, and I felt, well, I know it's a minor matter, but just to put some bird stickers up on the window, I can do it if you want. But
can we look at this from a practical standpoint? Can this not just be something that a phone call is made to the department and ask if there's any type of treatment that can be done to the windows instead of a motion coming to our committee?
well, no, it's a bird. Birds are precious animals. We're seeing a decline in songbirds, and it's a big issue for us, the world.
I understand that, and I think that this can be addressed not through this committee.
Well, if I have it from the agreement of the director that she'll take it upon herself now to look at this, I would be more than happy to receive this as information.
This would be more community services,
No municipal accommodations.
I mean municipal accommodations,
Yeah.
sorry. So I don't really
Okay.
have jurisdiction.
Yes, I understand that, and I don't think that municipal accommodations would not discuss this with you, Counselor. So if that's your appetite, I would ask that.
Municipal accommodations not fall under your division. You're correct. Your department.
She is not the director of municipal accommodations.
No, they split.
Yeah.
Where do they
That's
go?
Mr. Rob Taylor, who joined us. He's the director.
Where are they now?
They're under Rob Taylor, who was just chair.
So Taylor, he's a director.
Yes.
We made that it really.
There are 21 of them.
There's a way you can save money.
Counselor Wyatt, please.
portfolio.
I just said that.
Okay, is there a motion to receive his information, and Counselor Wyatt will discuss this with Mr. Taylor?
Well, and we, in light of, which committee does he fall under, Mr. Taylor? This committee?
Director of Municipal Accommodations and Asset Management.
Do we just refer to him and then I don't have to phone him?
It's refer as in,
Just refer to him, send a motion, send this off to him for consideration and that's
sure, I will personally email him your motion.
certainly, that would be lovely.
Thank you.
Very good.
And then we'll move it as information, sure.
Okay.
Okay, moved by Counselor Wyatt to receive his information, all in favor?
Aye.
Counselor
Opposed? Carried. 10, extension of time subdivision, rezoning, 100 Southtown Road, Mr. Beach. Mr. Chapel.
Yeah, no concerns with the extension.
No concerns. Moved by Counselor Bellotti, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, there we go. Opposed, carried. Item number 11, amendment to council conditions for rezoning of land located at 122 St. Anne's Road. Mr. Chapel.
Yeah, the original servicing report required pavements to occur. There's now going to be a local improvement program going on, so it's just a redundant condition. So we're making an amendment of the servicing agreement to remove that condition.
Okay, anyone movers? Okay. Moved by Counselor Santos, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that is the community committee recommendation there, Mr. Chapel, correct? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Called the question there, opposed, and that is carried. Item number 12, which is the approval of the proposed subdivision and servicing agreement for lands bound by Landover Drive, Castle Brook Drive, Skyline Drive, and Public Reserve. I heard this item. This is the roads that surround the proposed school in Waverly West area. Any comments from the public service on this? No comments at this
There's
point.
community committee supporting the public service recommendation.
Yes, we went back and forth. We were really concerned about the congestion around parking, especially at pickup, drop off and pickup, which all counselors get heat for. Because nothing that we do meets the requirements of hundreds of parents coming at once. I would strongly encourage people to use active transportation methods to get to school. I, for one, walk my kids to school. I think that we should also, as a city and the public service, should look at models that are used in larger metropolitan areas and the United States, where the valet parking system is used, and that takes the heat off the surrounding roads. That was my encouragement to the public service under Councillor Luke's leadership on this. So
When I was a kid, we had school buses. I don't know.
I don't know.
They dropped the school buses to go to the
Or
schools.
kids walked on their own.
I have discussions every day with people about why are you driving your kid a block away, but.
Question I have is, I don't know what the design of your school is here, but I know I've seen the one being proposed in my area by the province. And
Yeah.
it actually had both drop off areas. It had a drop off for the bus. So it had a separate busing drop off. And then it had proper parking for staff and everything. Was that included in your school being proposed here?
So, yes, however, typically, I don't want to speak for Pembina Trails, but my experience with Pembina Trails on these matters is that this is how they start, and then it is very much so that they do not want traffic on their property.
So they value engineer it after, is what you're telling us. They change the.
I don't think that they're changing it. I think that and this is just my observations, is that it evolves into the.
So how do we get
private vehicle owners are not encouraged to be on the property.
So the value system you refer to in the United States works quite well. How do we get the province to kind of get on board? Intergovernmental Affairs is the department of the mayor's office. How do we get, us to get something to them to say, look at the American, it's already, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. You get a valet system where they have people coming in, they basically have a drop off pickup system that works quite well down there. How can we get that done with the government? Because this is an ongoing issue. It's constantly a pain, and
it's a safety issue as well.
It's a safety issue, and it's and I don't see it ending where parents are driving their kids, unfortunately. So we might as well address it, and the province should step up and say, okay, let's direct the school boards to pursue a process to develop this policy.
Okay. Well, we can take this offline. The convenient thing of this, not only do we have the chairwoman of community services with us, we also have the chair or the liaison for school divisions in the city of Winnipeg with us, City Councilor Santos, so we can take offline and have a further discussion. Do I have a mover?
Did you say I'm terrible?
I said, that's a terrible job you have. How did you get that? No, I said you're
Okay,
wonderful.
Councilor Rawadi moves community committee recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Proposed closing of portions of Rue Davro. I'm not even gonna try Abel and Public Lane west of Avenue Taché for the incorporation into DAZ 3025 and DAC. I haven't seen one of those. 5/2025.
So moved. Anything surprising here?
No, this is part of the half application for 825 Tache, which is going to be coming up in on number 17. So any comments for that would probably be reserved for that item.
Any other brief comments by the public service? Okay, we have a mover in Councilor Rawadi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 14, subdivision rezoning of 736 Haney Street. This is good news. Any of the council members here, you can buy and build a new home in Charleswood if you'd like.
What do you mean?
However, there was concerns from the public service, Mr. Chaplin.
Yeah, so the condition as written doesn't represent an interest in land. So you can't just file a KV based on whatever the city wants to put on that property. So one way you could handle that, and then just email the clerk and yourself potential wording is to impose a zoning agreement which restricts the use of lot 4. So it doesn't quite capture the entire intent of the amendment, but I think your intent was to just not have development there for the future extension of the parkway.
So that's not exactly my intent, and I'll just explain to my committee members as they sit here wondering what this is all about. This is the future extension of the William R. Clement Parkway from Grant Avenue to, we'll say Wilkes, but southern through Wilkes South and connecting up into Waverly West. What I don't want is I don't want these lots developed and then in how many ever years when either studies start or actual construction is proposed that the neighbors come back and say, nobody ever told me this. So my intention is that on title, something is said there that this construction will take place. However we want to word it at the timing and funding of the city of Winnipeg.
Yeah, so what we have done in the past is through a permitting system, we put a note on properties to say that it's intended for Peguis, Route 90, whatever the case is, really meant, so that if anyone searches the property through our property search, that would come up as a concern to a future purchaser. You could still try the zoning agreement route to just state that no development can occur. Which hopefully then triggers people to understand what's going on. I mean, we could probably get into a bit more wording in terms of why it's
I suppose the concern isn't even lot 4. It's 1, 2, and 3 where actual residential houses are going to be built. That's the folks that I want to know. Like, it doesn't matter lot 4 because lot 4 is going to be bigger.
Right. So there's nothing that we would put against their property because the interest or the lot 4 is what is affected, not lots 1, 2, and 3. So again, we can put the administrative message on lots 1, 2, and 3 to state that there will be a parkway behind your property.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I'm asking.
Okay, then I would just say then, I guess delete new condition 9. And then we'll just take direction. I mean, you don't even do direction. We can just handle that. I can provide an email to say that we'll put an administrative note on the properties.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sorry, just if you speak to that, or do you have comments?
Yeah, I concur with that idea is remove that condition out of the servicing agreement and we can put it within our permitting system online. So these properties will have this note on the permitting system.
Okay.
And then in terms of lot 4, Councillor, the city is going to be taking those lands and paying the developer for lot 4. So because that will be the future right of way someday, potentially for the extension of Bill Clement Parkway. So lot 4 is covered. So then the other 3 lots we can handle with just a note in the permitting system.
Okay, so we can still go with public service recommendation here, Madam Clerk, of that no building improvement or structure be located on lot 4. I'm fine with that, but I do need some sort of messaging to future homeowners that there's going to be potentially a road in your
So
backyard.
you'd like the zoning agreement then to be entered into for lot 4? Or you just want to note on as part of the approval that that's what it's intended for?
Mr. Chair, I wouldn't request a zoning agreement for just that item because the city is taking over that land.
Okay.
And a zoning agreement does cost the
Okay.
developer money.
I'll take the public service recommendation and
This
that's
is a
not
smaller
to
scale
include that. I don't need to Councillor White's earlier point. We don't need to further burden.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
So what I've done in the past in situations like this, Mr. Chairperson, for example, the Evershire Parkway. And I know full well what you're saying, that folks come along later and say, well, I was told by the realtor this is gonna be a park when I bought my house. I've required developers to put up signs, large signs, very visible on the major thoroughfares that would be crossing, that cross the land in question. Basically indicating this is the proposed concept of the future parkway and to make them pay for it. And therefore the public sees the sign, no debate,
Yeah,
there in the future.
I get the intent with that, but this will not be seen. It's in the bush.
Depends on where you put the signage, but you can have them put the signage anywhere along the future route. And it would show the design and they would see it as well because they live in the neighborhood. Doesn't have to be right there.
Yeah.
Right? And that's something you can make the developer pay for, and we've done it before, just so you know.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment.
Not a problem.
Okay, so then, as recommended by, the public service regarding the actual, help me with the wording here, titles on 1, 2, 3.
You want to have that part of the approval that you provide direction for us to add a administrative comment to the properties, lots 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not to titles.
No, not titles.
Not to titles,
Yeah,
okay.
we wouldn't be able to do it on the title, but we can do it administratively. So that the public service be directed to add an administrative comment to its permitting system. Reflect that lot 4 will be improved with William R. Clement Way. Clement Parkway.
So
Did I just say
not
that?
1, 2, and 3.
Sorry, what did I say?
You
That,
said
sorry,
4.
lots 1, 2, and 3, yeah. Can you read that again? I don't know what I just said.
I was gonna ask you one bit of it, so that the public service be directed to add an administrative comment to its permitting system to.
On lots 1, 2, and 3. Proposed lots 1, 2, and 3. That lot 4
Yes.
will become the William R. Clement Parkway.
Okay, that the public service be directed to add an administrative comment to its permitting system on proposed lots 1, 2, and 3 to indicate that lot 4 will become part of the William R. Clement Parkway.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is that part of just a separate recommendation?
I think that can just be an entirely separate recommendation that
And we're deleting my amendment.
1BI.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Are you good on that? Okay. Pardon me? Yes, Councillor Brawadi, can you take the chair? Sure. I'll move the, what is it, this committee's recommendation as amended?
Yes, with an amendment to delete recommendation 1BI and add the new recommendation 13 as read out.
Okay,
Okay.
understood.
As indicated by the clerk.
Okay, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Subdivision and rezoning of 6, 7, 8 McGregor Street.
I have a question.
Sure.
So at every community committee meeting going on, used to be in the past, it was automatically in your reports, but now we have to amend the reports all the time. And that is, I'm referring to page 7 of this report, whereby the Lord Selkirk West Kelowna Community Committee amended it to add their name in to receive the plan approval prior to the issue of permits to have input into it. Why can't we just automatically have that as part of it? I know it's the director's ability to have that delegated authority, but why can't we go back to, simply saying that the community committee plays an integral role? I know we've had a situation where I can give the example. It was on Narren Avenue in our area where we stepped up and we were of great, I think, assistance. Councilor Brawley was in that meeting. Councilor Schreier was still alive then. When we were able to make improvements to the parking configuration, improvements to the entranceway, safety issues were addressed just because of our collective wisdom or knowledge that we've gained over the last number of decades of serving together when you could combine all of our service.
No, and the applicant, I think, actually appreciated and recognized that it was an improvement over the original design. Yeah.
But we're always having to add it, and it just should be automatic.
Okay, I have a question here. Public service can answer.
Yeah, through the chair to the councillor. This agreement is, the zoning agreement condition for plan approval is often, it used to go to community committees and it used to be in the wording quite often. We have, through our communications with developers, the development community, they have to often wait an extra several months to get on the agenda to bring their plan approval forward. Often the community committee did not have a concern with the plans. So now the default is just the director review. And as it comes to community committee, the committee can put that, they can amend the condition like they did for this one. An example recently is that entire project at Southwood Circle at University of Manitoba, like thousands of units. And the councillor was supportive of amending the zoning agreement to take community committee out of the plan approval.
I would prefer that process versus the other way around, which is it could be missed, especially if a new councillor. I don't know. I mean, I've got that view. It's just, and I know our community committee, I can't speak for others, but I know we have accommodated developers. We've called special meetings just to get their plan approval dealt with. I just see the benefit being the other way around. Like,
It's in the name of, facilitating development and increasing the pace of development. Putting on those extra conditions like that will often slow down the development process. That's why we've been doing it.
all right, I just raised a question.
No, and I'm thinking, to your point, I want to move along in the agenda here, but
Yeah.
it's not to lessen the importance of it, but it would also be kind of like when we used to get all of these requests for alcohol permits. Is there not an option that we can look at where it's sent informally to the community committee? And if the community committee offline says, no, we don't need to see a plan approval, then they can move along. And if somebody wants to, then that can be preemptively scheduled.
I'm thinking, when the area planner gets an application, they could maybe connect with the area counselor.
Right, because also.
And talk about the application. This is what's coming forward.
Let's take this offline. I think it's a good point, Councillor Wyatt. Can we have a mover on?
The other quick question I have, just what comes to mind is, any properties now that come forward with any kind of commercial on it? Is the department taking the approach, and often this was something we have to add in as well? That is, I just say this.
I just want to avoid here, we're stepping into the new.
No, I hear what you're saying. I just want to make sure mobile signs, we have gone to a great extent to ban them at the rezoning.
This is new business.
All right, okay, fair enough.
Thank you. Do you have a mover on 15?
I'll move,
Okay.
the community committee's recommendation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Subdivision and rezoning of St. Anne's Road. Address is noted in the report. Anything from the public service on this?
No service.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Brawadi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 17, which is our final item here on today's reports, which is subdivision rezoning. Land located in Natasha, south through Abel, north of the CN, line and east of the Red River. TAZ 3025. There was a comment that public service would like to share.
No additional comment here. It was supported by community committee. It's one of the Housing Accelerator Fund projects with city land. 80-foot height, 65 units, 7 stories, affordable housing. Good project.
Where is the right of way for the rail line on this property?
The right of way is separated to the south of the subject property by the existing Darvaux right of way, which is 66 feet wide, and that will be rezoned as PR.
So this in no way, shape or form jeopardizes a future rapid transit line that could go around along this road?
The application was circulated through the various departments.
No, I know, but our existing plan excludes now rapid transit along this road. Originally, the city of Winnipeg had initiated or had identified that rail line as being the ideal rail line to place a rapid transit route. Winnipeg and City Council previously, my term here now, voted to put everything on street. I'm just trying to protect the future interests of the city. And the council decides to, and probably will decide one day to go back to that. The land assembly is so crucial and we don't want to lose the ability or marginalize ourselves.
Yeah.
Council's direction was the east corridor route, which changed the alignment, so.
No, I know, but we're all over the map on that one, so.
Well, we were taking council's latest direction on that. So.
Yeah, I know, as it stands today.
We are retaining that 66 foot as PR, so it will be city land.
The city up against the south, the north side of the rail. 66 feet, how many meters is that?
30-ish,
Height.
20.
Okay, no, a collector is 10.5,
Yeah.
10 meters, so,
You're
okay,
close.
then we're well within that if we have to need it.
20 meters, my apologies. Yeah, doing my math.
Yeah, all right, double the size, all right,
Okay,
okay,
mover,
so moved.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That brings us to the end of our agenda. We do have an in-camera item.
Also, I have new business,
Could I ask that we take this offline? I have read it and I appreciate it. I am supportive of it. However, I would like to give a chance to go back and forth with the department offline and go to legal services.
It's possible, bring it back to the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I'll move that we
Thank you.
go in camera.
And Councilor Santos moves in camera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll rejoin you for consent agenda. Welcome back to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development for October 9th, 2025. We have a mover for consent agenda adjournment.
So moved.
I'll move by Counselor Rawadi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? As carried. Thank you very much. We will see you back at the next SPC on E&D.
Thank you.